Thanks everyone for being timely. We're just going to give it another 30 seconds or so. There were just a few people who were having some problems with getting on.
Hi, Tina. So wonderful to see your beautiful face.
Oh, hi, Professor Shafty. How are you doing? It's nice to see your beautiful face.
Thank you. So wonderful to see. I was excited about the forum. I wasn't excited about
Hello.
it brings us together, but I was excited too for the forum.
Yeah.
Hi, Dr. McLean.
Hey, doctor. How are you?
I'm doing
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I can't see nobody, but I can hear you.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
We can't see you.
We can definitely hear you loud and clear.
Figure this out.
Hi, Dr. Bullard.
Hey, how you
Nice
doing,
to see
Fatima?
Hey, Dr. Bullard.
Hey, how you doing?
See all of you.
Hey, Robert.
Okay,
Hey,
how do
hey.
I get my
Dr.
I'm gonna see
McLean, Dr.
people.
Shafi, Dr. Bullard, Reverend Malcolm, how y'all doing?
It's
Hey,
fine.
sweetie.
Good.
Hey,
Oh,
Bobby.
my picture.
Oh, look at that.
Where's my picture?
Thank you, Dr. Wright, Dr. Bullard.
Hello,
for
everyone.
together. Thank you. God bless you.
All right, so we are going to thank you everyone for joining. As I said a few minutes ago, we're going to get started. I'm going to mute everyone on the call, so please during the time, so that we can make sure that we can hear folks. Or actually, if you could help me out, could you all mute yourselves? That would be helpful. And then we will have our speakers on the call. Just a quick house cleaning, so we all know. We'll have several speakers today. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A. You are here for the relaunch of the National Black Environmental Justice Network, and we'll be talking about the converging environmental threats to Black America and why we must act and why we are here again. I want to review the agenda just so you all know. We'll do introductions, who is NBEJN, our mission and vision, why NBEJN is needed again, and how do we work together, building an emergency action for Black America, plan for Black America, building a just and equitable agenda for Black America, and a call to action, NBEJN membership, Q&A, and moving forward. It's a lot, but we have planned to have a lot of space for Q&A at the end. So we are planning to really get into a conversation with folks on this call. So I'm Tina Johnson, and so I'll be facilitating the call, but also participating in a different capacity as well. So welcome again, everyone. Please make sure you're muted. We're happy to have you all here. People are still coming in. Here we go. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wright, who's going to kick us off.
Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to see some of your faces. I wish I were in person so I could hug and all the stuff that we do, high five, but this is where we are now. And I'm gonna ask your indulgence with me as I try to go through an introduction that I sort of finished 3:30 this morning. And of course, in talking about relaunching NBEJN, every time I think or put my thinking cap on, I think of other things that I want to say. But good afternoon to friends and colleagues, my sisters and brothers in struggle. I am, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Beverly Wright, Director of the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I am also the co-chair of this extraordinarily exciting and most important endeavor to relaunch the National Black Environmental Justice Network. And I know that if we were all present, we would be clapping and cheering, so I'm just pretending like I can hear your excitement. But this is different, trying to relate to you from afar and through a couple of pictures. It is truly my honor and my absolute delight to welcome you to this call to become an active member of NBEJN. Each of you are here by invitation only and were recommended by the executive committee and steering committee members because you possess the character, fortitude, and commitment to the values of our movement and the importance of this struggle. You also, as is exemplified in your work on equity and justice for our exploited and neglected communities. As just about all of you know, this is not our first run. NBEJN was first organized in 1999, and you all with a meeting in New Orleans, Louisiana of about 300 grassroots organizers and activists representing 33 states. And at that time, we were called the Interim National Black Environmental and Economic Justice Coordinating Team. The alphabets are INBEEJCC. And if you remember Damu, it was very difficult for us to move from all of those alphabets that none of us could ever remember, or even remember a name that was that long. And from that group, a small team was appointed, and that team was called the Interim Facilitator Team. And that team was responsible for guiding the work of a national action plan. An impetus for the development of NBEJN the first time was certainly that we were facing a national emergency. And you can see the picture that's on the screen now of those of us who were really involved in the beginnings of this organization. And at that time, we had moved through an almost 2-year process of becoming NBEJN. And one of the impetuses was, of course, the emergency that we were facing, but another one was something that happened to us at the first National People of Color Summit, where we, as African Americans, worked for all racial and ethnic groups together. And when it was time to caucus at that committee, we found ourselves walking around in the middle of the floor with no place to go. So we began to recognize in 1999 that we needed to pull together an organization for Black people. And it took from 92, I probably got the dates wrong, to 99 for us, almost 10 years for us to get to where we were under Damu. What happened to NBEJN was simply the fact that when we lost Damu, who passed away, we somehow lost our energy because of the loss of his energy, the loss of his spirit, the loss of his vision, the loss of his skills, which left us, in my opinion, without gravity. We seemed to be floating away in space with no landing path. We had no place, we were still doing all the work, but where did we come together? We had no place to go. But just as the call to organize Black folks became clear at the first People of Color National Summit, that call is just as clear at this point, but this time, we will not lose our energy. We will continue to do the work that we are and establish the organization in such a way that it will continue even after all of us here are gone. whenever I talk about Damu, as Bullet says, you shouldn't do it because you can never get through it. Well, Bob, guess what? For the first time, I got through it without a tear, which is interesting. And that's just how important I believe that this organization is. So we are once again coming together to respond to a community emergency by developing a national action plan and a platform for the continued response. It is our intent to be the Black voice that guides, voice that gives voice to the voiceless, that stands with authority and commitment as a voice of our people, that stands firmly on the principles of environmental justice and the Jimenez organizing principles, stand as a legitimate voice of the people by staying true to our principles of a bottoms-up process. We will recruit and invite members all across the country for active membership, develop a national platform for Black Americans, and work to make that platform over time the nature of our existence. This is the time. Today is the day. Black lives do matter, and we will breathe. We are also launching NBEJN in the memory of Damu Smith, a founding member and our first executive director. This was also his vision, and we lost him too soon, gone, but not forgotten. And we do this also in memory of him. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to the new executive committee and steering committee who have worked so very hard to get us to this day. Believe it or not, I don't think I imagined the work of relaunching this entity to be as hard as it was and is, or require so many hours of work by those of us who made the commitment to do so. The Deep South Center for Environmental Justice was happy to take the lead in trying to get us to become who we used to be and who we plan to be, and that is better than ever. So what you see before you is the existing executive committee and steering committee members who have been responsible for getting us here. Of course, it's Dr. Beverly Wright, 10 years ago, by the way, a picture of me from a long time ago, but it's still beautiful. But Dr. Beverly Wright and Robert Bullitt, that infamous team is still together working as co-chairs of the organization. We have Tina Johnson working as a director, who we still all need to apologize to at some point and thank at others for our behavior in trying to get here. We have the infamous Peggy Shepard of WEAC, who we all know and love, and who has in fact been around for a long time. And I believe Donnell Wilkins must be next because pictures are blocking her, but Donnell Wilkins from the Green Door Initiative and the founder of Detroit is working for environmental justice. Our steering committee included Mustafa Ali, Dr. Glenn Johnson, Monique Harden, Adrian Hollis, Cecil Corbin Mark, Mildred McLean, Bernice Travis Miller, Jackie Patterson, David Paget, Peyton Wilkins, and Sakobi Wilson. And with that introduction, I would like now, next slide, please. To formally give you our definition of who we are. I need to make a change here because my slide is blocked. Okay. So who is NBEJN? NBEJN is a national coalition of environmental justice organizations and activists pursuing a proactive strategy that organizes a broad-based Black community to meet environmental justice, racial and economic justice, food justice, health equity, political power, civil rights, and human rights threats that disproportionately affect Black Americans. In other words, you are NBEJN. And now we will hear from several of our executive committee members.
So good time, Tina, for me to hop in. All right, awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Peyton Wilkins. I'm the executive director of the Coalition of Black Trade Unions Education Center. I know many of you have known me since I was a child. It's so good to see everyone's face and in good health. I want to talk to you all about why NBEJN is important and why it's important now. And we can't even begin to have this conversation without truly understanding the nature of power and how it's neutral and how it's used determines whether it's good or it's bad. We all understand that power is never given, it is only taken. We are posited or positioned to grab the power that we need to make the change our community and our people desire. Right now, because of everything that is going on socially and culturally across the United States and of America, right now, because we have the unique perspective of being the ones who are the victims of this oppression. NBEJN has a unique perspective to how this oppression impacts us and how and what the solutions looks like to that oppression for us, because we are the people who make up the people we want to serve. Thank you. I believe it's Monique after me, right?
Yep.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Monique Harden, here in New Orleans, Louisiana with the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice and also on the steering committee of the National Black Environmental Justice Network. I just want to revisit a little bit of the history of NBEJN and Damu Smith, who many of y'all know was one of my mentors. And, you know, he wasn't just an activist for environmental justice and economic justice, but in his bones, he was truly economical. And y'all who know Damu know what I'm talking about. And one of that trait meant that we were all tested in the early days and coming together to form what we didn't know would be the National Black Environmental Justice Network, but it was really just an emergency gathering of Black environmental justice activists from around the country converging in New Orleans area to hammer out how can we work together and build our strength in this movement for environmental justice and fighting back and resisting environmental racism. And the best setting that Damu organized for us was a really crappy hotel. And if you can imagine what it's like for 3 or 4 days of 12, 14-hour meeting, strategy sessions, relationship building, organizing, reconnecting with people, building new bridges with new folks, and going back to a room where the shower would drip on you. And folks did it. And we all hung in together and worked it out, and gave Damu mad credit for the hotel choice. But the choice that we all really gathered around is how can we work together to end racially discriminatory environmental decision making. And where that work has led us over the years and where we are now with relaunching NBEJN, I think is really important and critical at this juncture where we're seeing and learning and experiencing more about what it means to have that kind of decision making in our communities oppressing us and how we live, and what that looks like in terms of health and opportunity into the future, and what that has given us, right? So it's more pollution, more toxic poisoning, climate change, and now new risks with COVID-19. So coming together around how we can work our way out of it, because if we don't do it, no one else will, is extremely important. So I'm just really thankful to everyone for bringing this together. Dr. Wright, Dr. Bullard, Peggy Shepard, Donnell Wilkins, Tina, and all of the members of the steering committee and all the folks who are gathered here today, figuring out how we can work this up again. And we're able to do it with this orientation meeting in the comfort of our own home. So we're not in crappy hotel rooms working this out. And so that's a blessing. So I'm just glad to see everybody's part of this, and look forward to the work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique and Peyton, for that. Peggy, you're up. Peggy, I think you might be on mute.
Here we are. Great to see so many colleagues and friends. Thank you for joining us today. Let me talk a little about the mission and the vision of the network. The network is dedicated to improving the lives of Black people and addressing the systemic racism that harms and denies Black people equal access to environmental, climate, racial, and economic justice, health equity, political power, civil rights, and human rights. Our vision, it's one of building a world where Black people live in communities free from the vestiges of systemic racism and environmental degradation, with full access to opportunities for building a quality life for Black children and families. Now, we know that's a very expansive vision, and we can only achieve that with all of your help. So that's why we've invited you all today. We need you to be a part of this. We need you to provide the kind of support that a lot of us provide for white organizations, where we are helping them and educating them. We need that help for our own Black organizations to achieve the vision we have just laid out. So thank you for being here with us today. And we have a lot of work to do. And thank you for being a part of this.
Wow. So unlike Dr. Wright, I didn't make a commitment not to cry. And so I'm finding myself a little emotional, but I'll get through this. So I'm Donnell Wilkins out of Detroit. I am the founder and director of the Green Door Initiative in the city of Detroit. And as Dr. Wright mentioned, the founding director of Detroiters Working for Environmental Justice. You know, I'm all about purpose and lives, and our lives having a purpose and a focus. And every one of you that has been connected to this work and invited to this work understands purpose. And we have been called to our people, Black folks. So I just really want to emphasize what the purpose of the National Black Environmental Justice Network is. It's about dedicating our lives to improving the lives of Black people and addressing the systemic racism that harms and denies Black people equal access to environmental, climate, racial, and economic justice, health equity, political power, civil rights, and human rights. It's going to take a nation of Black folks to get this work done. And we're the beginning of that process to move our agenda forward and to be clear about what we stand for and what we're about as Black people holding up the banner to protecting our community, to ensure that our folks have the ability to live a life that embraces everything that's described in our purpose. I look forward to continuing this work with you. God bless you.
Dr. Bullitt, I think you're muted.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Bullard. I am really pleased to join this call and to be part of this relaunch of the National Black Environmental Justice Network. And I'd like to preface my points by saying NBEJN is unapologetically Black and supports environmental justice principle regarding embracing the right of self-determination. That's principle number 5. Environmental justice affirms the fundamental right to political, economic, cultural, and environmental self-determination of all peoples. So we are strongly in support of grassroots Black organizations, networks, consortia, and other entities working on behalf of Black people. We are not displacing any Black EJ voices, groups, or organizations. Instead, we are about amplifying the fundamental right, amplifying, strengthening, and catalyzing the diverse Black voices to build a consensus Black EJ agenda. Our membership is designed to be inclusive and to align with EJ Principle 5. So let me just quickly talk about on June 15th, 2020, is when a small group of us decided, after looking at all of the things that were hitting our communities, that it was time to relaunch NBEJN. And it was not something that was planned, it was organic. And the fact that it was not a democratic process that we're going to come together and we're going to invite whomever, whatever, we said this is something that needs to be done. So as we reach out and as we design, develop, expand the steering committee and the processes that we are going to try to build this organization, this network out, we're going to have to be inclusive and make sure, of course, that all regions, because Black folks we're in every state, even in Maine. So the converging multiple threats that are happening at the same time is why we say this is important. So if you go to the slide, the next slide, please. So my job, I for the last 40 years, I've tried to connect dots in my 18 books and research, et cetera. So the idea is that we need to connect the dots in NBEJN to say how we're going to get our various organizations, institutions, grassroots groups, academic institutions to pull on one accord. And so the thing, the multiple threats that's converging on Black America, the first one is, if you go to the next slide, I think we have this disparate impact of unchecked air pollution and the rollback of environmental protection and regulations on health, safety, and well-being of Black America. The current administration has rolled back at least 100 environmental regulations, and they have disproportionately impact Black people. Not just poor Black people, not just people who are isolated, but Black people. The second threat, and I want to underline all of these threats, the central theme that's pulling all of them together is systemic racism. That's the underlying threat that's driving all of these things toward us at the same time. It's like a heat-seeking missile that's coming in on all of us at one time. Government efforts to invalidate the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, and the differential impact on Black America. Black Americans are less likely to have health insurance. Over 11.5% Black folks don't have health insurance compared to 7.5% for whites. Access to health care and access to quality health care. COVID-19, disproportionate hospitalization and deaths among Black Americans. COVID-19 and the attention given to it has made a lot of these threats even more real and even more visible in living color on television. The recent New York Times report showed that Black Americans are 3 times more likely to become infected as their white neighbors, and twice as likely to die from COVID. So when we talk about the combination of rollbacks of environmental standards, lack of health insurance, and now COVID, not just residents, but also workers. COVID is attacking workers in a way because of where we work. Special risks to Black essential frontline workers and the economic risk to small Black-owned businesses during this era of COVID-19. In other words, we're getting hit in our communities and our workers are getting hit, and we're not getting any of the benefits from the stimulus or from the small business loans. 90% of our Black-owned businesses were cut out of the small business loans. Black workers are least likely to be able to work from home. So we're getting hit on many sides. New FEMA COVID-19 operational guidance. The next slide. Guidance warning people to stay home during the 2020 hurricane season, and special challenges posed to Black Americans in vulnerable Gulf Coast and coastal cities. Right now, FEMA guidance, this administration, under the guise of saying, well, we can't social distance at shelters and therefore you got a shelter in place at home. If you're in a vulnerable area that floods, or you're in low-lying areas or in areas that have tremendous threats from climate impacts, or whether it's hurricanes, fires, floods, etc., then you have to shelter in place and pray. And so FEMA's not showing up. We have to have a plan for that. And if we look at the fact that those communities that have historically been left behind will also be left further behind when it comes to disaster response and recovery dollars. We documented that money follows, the way the recovery dollars flow is money follows money, money follows power, and money follows whites. Environmental racism, racial redlining, and housing discrimination threaten transformative wealth from Black communities and Black families accruing equity. In other words, transformative wealth is wealth that you can pass down from one generation to the next, and racism robs Black people of wealth and transformative wealth. As a matter of fact, there is a hidden Black tax in terms of housing discrimination. There's a Black tax when it comes to the systemic nature of racism in wealth accumulation, and the calculations have been made in terms of Black wealth is only 10% of what white wealth is, and the net wealth of white families is $800,000 greater than for Black wealth. And so if we talk about the compensation for environmental racism and other racism, there's a number, a dollar number that you can put on it. Principle of Environmental Justice 17 says environmental justice protects the right of victims of environmental injustice to receive full compensation and reparations for damages, as well as quality health care. So this particular point deals with the theft of Black wealth, the theft of Black health. There's compensation, and there's a name for compensation, and it's called reparations. And lastly, special limitations on civic and political engagement of Black Americans created by closure of and consolidation of voting locations, unavailability of absentee or mail-in voting, forcing people to choose between protecting their health and exercising their right to vote during COVID era. We see this as another systemic form of racism. And again, the fact that since the Supreme Court decision of Shelby v. Holder, 2013, over 1,200 polling places have closed, and a bunch of polling places have been consolidated during COVID. So we see political disenfranchisement, threats to public health, the pollution that's killing us and choking us. We see all these things interrelated, converging, and this emergency. We can't wait for other people to ride in and save us. We must do this ourselves. And those are the converging threats. And there is and these threats can be placed in buckets that will be. We talk about how we develop task forces and action plans around those buckets. Is your next one?
Yep, you're there.
I'm done. Thank you.
So here I am again, and as Dr. Bullard indicated or intimated, this is about all hands on deck. There's a method to our madness by inviting the true workers, the true committed individuals to this initial orientation meeting. It's about how we're going to work together to get all of this done, to address all of the inequities, to address the disparities, to fill up those gaps, and to ensure that our people get what they deserve. So these are some of the things that we came up with in terms of, as you think about, well, where do I fit in? How do I bring what I know and do to the table? So there are things that this work really will require. And we're going to start off with a rapid response team. We need folks who will make themselves available. I don't know, there are a myriad of threats, as you know. So there will be a myriad or a real diverse need to include folks with varying expertise and abilities, from the grassroots to the grass tops and anywhere else. So that's something you could consider. We need, again, a technical outreach and support that we can provide to our communities as people become more and more aware of these issues and know that NBEJN exists. We want to be able to tap into that expertise that many of you bring to this table. Again, there will be opportunities to provide expert advice on panels and other forums, education and training, ongoing, youth and student leadership and mentoring. We need to ensure that the next generation, this current generation, there is a link up in terms of this village to ensure that the work continues. Ensuring that there's deep development of relationships between the university or academic institutions and the community, or how Dr. Bev and Bob put it, community university partnerships, and building that capacity to do that. Creating forums, roundtables, webinars, workshops, whatever, Zoom meetings, whatever we need to do when we're able to do it in person. And while we're not able to do much of this in person, how do we capitalize on the ability to do it virtually? Again, ongoing research and policy development, what needs to happen in our communities, maybe that has not been thought about, but within this group, we may be able to come up with the best practice and approach to addressing these issues that we are impacted by. Information and clearinghouses, scientific translation. Some of this stuff can be deep, but we got a number of people who were able to take this information and to dissect it and present it back to our community in a way that everyone can understand. We need to mobilize around environmental justice and racial justice. The truth of the matter is, the work is not done. We see it every day, and it continues to be in our face. So it's time for us to continue to build upon what we know to do in terms of organizing our communities and getting us all on the same page and making this Army work for the betterment of our communities around environmental justice. Thank you.
Dr. Wright, I think you're on mute.
Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. Once again, we are really interested in this organization being a working organization. And we are also interested in developing products that move forward our goal of just and equitable and sustainable communities for Black Americans. To this end, one of the action items, and there are many, but one of the action items is that we move towards building a just and equitable agenda for Black Americans. That agenda will be grounded in 5 rubrics, the first being environmental justice, climate justice, racial justice, health justice, and economic justice. So just as we were able to develop as a very large group of people of color the principles of environmental justice and other persons who were involved in developing the Jimenez, well, I'm not Latino, but Jimenez organizing principles. We want to come up with our own agenda, our own vision, our own path, setting goals in all of these areas. We expect that these areas of work will be undergirded by our platform, by our work groups. And we are expecting that all of you will, first of all, join NBEJN, and there is a financial obligation connected to that. We expect that you would join NBEJN, that's our first call. And we expect that you would join a work group to work on all of these emergencies that we have surrounding us, which basically represents how we got started in 1999. That emergency is not over. In fact, now it's a wildfire. It is, you know, it is really grown and it's gotten even larger. So we expect that you would join work groups to work on those things, and then please become involved in I consider a much larger, more encompassing project that we hope to engage members regionally and locally to develop our own Black agenda for moving forward to what we consider an equitable and just, and I like to say sustainable, Black community in the United States of America. So the call to action, once again, is to join NBEJN. And I want to say again, there is a financial obligation that goes with this, which means there's a membership fee, because we have to have funds to move forward. And I really would like to see us support our own organizations. And this is one way that you can be a part of something that you own and you support. I want to thank everybody again for coming, and I wish I could see your natural face, but at this point, seeing you in Zoom is still helpful and lovely and wonderful. And I would like to turn it over now to Tina Johnson, our director.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Wright and everyone else who has spoken. I just wanted to go over with everyone what the membership categories are for the network. When we were thinking through the network and how it could be structured for membership, we looked at what existed with the original network, and it was rooted, as has been said on this call, in grassroots organizations. And so we maintained that as the foundation for the network, that we're rooted in the work that grassroots organizations are doing on the ground. And then what we've identified are folks that we know, I think sometimes people call them allies or affiliate members, but we actually were looking at folks who we work with who don't fit into this category of grassroots organizations, that are bigger, either networks or organizations that are not necessarily working on environmental justice, but have been friends in the work of environmental justice. And so we've created a Friends of the NBEJN. Each of these network memberships have obligations with them. As Dr. Wright pointed out, there is a membership, a network fee that's annual. For grassroots organizations, we broke it down by size of the annual budget for each of the grassroots organizations. And so the smallest budget is $0 to, I think, $500,000, and that membership, for example, would be $100. We also looked at individual practicing professionals. We know that many folks who work on behalf and in alignment with issues around environmental justice and all of the other areas we've identified, and who work on behalf of the betterment of African Americans and the Black diaspora, may not work in predominantly African American or Black organizations, but might work in white organizations and still want to be connected. So we created a individual practicing professionals network membership. It gives you all the rights and privileges of of being a full member with voting rights. So all of these organizational network have voting rights with the exception of Friends of NBEJN. And then we have individual affiliate members. And these are folks who are not working in these areas, but want to be engaged in other ways. And so we wanted to create a membership that would allow for them to also be able to engage with us. And they have a different set of criteria as well. A lot of this is really to make sure that the work that we are formulating and grounding ourselves in are actually grounded in the work that people who are at the forefront of these issues are actually driving our agenda, driving our work, and that we're not allowing for big organizations or folks who may not be fully engaged in these spaces to drive agendas and focus away from where grassroots organizations and communities need the work to be focused. And then of course, we really are a network that wants to and will and has done a lot to encourage the mentorship and the leadership of young adults who are working and may not be in school, and students. So we have a membership for young adults and students because we really want them to be a part of this work that we're doing, not only as a participant, but also actively engage in leading the work that the organization is doing as a whole. And then we have one for retirees. We have a lot of folks who I know on the steering committee, at least the executive committee, have said they wanted to go to the beach at some point and plan on being retirees, but not leaving this work. But we also have people who are wanting to engage and are asking how they can get engaged now that they have more time and that they care about these issues. So we've really tried to find a way to make the network as accessible as possible. If you go to, when you go to nbejn.com to apply for membership, you will see the categories there. We also have identified and understand that some folks may not be able to pay the full membership that we have there. So we ask that you let us know, contact us directly and let us know what the needs are, because we want to make sure that it's affordable. But as Dr. Wright pointed out, our network needs to be funded. The steering committee put up an initial contribution, each member of the steering committee, to get us going. And so we know that it's important that we have a membership and a network that actually engages in its own financial stability as we also do fundraising. And so the membership is, NBEJN is network membership only. So most of all of our resources and opportunities to engage are only for members. And so if folks aren't members, then there is a limited amount of activity that will be available to them. And we've done that also because it's important to maintain the integrity of the work and the focus of those working together to build a network. And then, so I want to again thank you all for being on this call. We have left, as I said, a lot of time for Q&A, and there have been quite a few questions that have come in while the presentation has been going, and some answers have been given. What I want to do now is just stop sharing my screen so we can actually see each other and have a question and answer from folks. We've asked members of the steering committee to also participate in responding to questions that folks might have. So we will hear from quite a few people on the call, not just the executive committee. And so I would like to ask, there was a question about adding education to the list of our priorities. So I would like to open the floor for that question to be asked. If you're speaking, you are probably muted. Okay, not hearing that question coming, I'd like to just open the floor to any to questions. You can raise your hand by clicking on your, there's a way for you to raise your hand so we can see you, and then we can help here a bit. Okay, I have Dr. Bernard, so I will go ahead. Dr. Bernard, please speak. You can unmute yourself. Dr. Bernard, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have a question.
Okay, your hand was raised. Okay. Sindhu Withers.
Hi, Inseidu.
And Sindhu, sorry.
Hi, no worries. Everyone knows me as Insei. Really good to see everyone. Thank you for this wonderful beginning of. My question was just around, or suggestion, and even if it's not, decided today, of course, it was an offer that while there are so many, scabs that this COVID has clearly ripped apart, just exposed as far as the underbelly of layers of injustice. I just felt that the educational, I would say the failing educational in many regards in this country system might want to be considered as part of the action agenda, just because it is a critical pathway and can be determinant of one's future or lack of future, right? And we know that many children are going to school in buildings that are actually making them sick, and the engagement in the, the lack of funding and the lack of ability to acquire funds and on and on and on. It's a ripple effect for the literacy issues as well as the actual health issues. And I'd say cognitive learning and mental health and all of that. So that was just an offer to consider. And I certainly would be happy to assist if that does get added.
I respond, Gina.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a similar question from, thank you, Insei, from Marion Johnson Thompson. And I responded to that in a chat. And of course, education, it's being an educator all of my academic career or adult career is very important and touches every aspect of that. And in terms of breaking it out and making it one of those bullets, I could definitely see that. Zeroing in on that with the special implications for children and in terms of moving to the next level from just kids and then moving up to the kindergarten, elementary, high school, etc. So yeah, I would I could definitely see that. And if you'd want, that might be a little team to put together to come up with a way to couch that in terms of education. And I'd be willing to work with you on that.
Great. Aaron, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Aaron Mayer.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. How's everybody doing?
Great.
I can see that Brother Bob has not availed himself of the access to those Texas haircuts. I see. Y'all forgive me, your brother Mayor always from day one,
You're
always.
Damn right. I had to unmute. No, my barbershop is next to the chicken place and the liquor store.
Y'all know that, I've always, kept up the fight. And the thing is the gallows humor that keeps the solidarity. So it's good seeing many of my brothers and sisters that are here and that we're still doing what we can to keep this fight alive. So the answer is I'm always going to say I'm all in. I just got to find a way in the most affordable way to, as I say, I normally go in and we at least had some ammunition. So now I got to buy bullets. So that's okay. That's okay. And we're getting like, but it's on the power end because Bob and brother I and Beverly know that mine is a data end. My big health title, facial epidemiologist, so I do a lot of tracking and now. In fact, it was my work that led to the COVID. It's not COVID, the Ebola screening, and so. But that said, so there's that piece that I can wonk and I can help. But the other piece that we need to look at, because I think that's very powerful, and as Bob and Beverly are aware of, in the past 3 decades of successful reapportionment battles that I've engaged in, there were the first real cases where the cause of harm, that we needed to leverage, because you got to prove that you're adversely harmed, not that you just are Black and need additional Black voting districts, but the harm, was a lot of the EJ analysis that was included in harm. So basically we're electing policy makers or legislators who are going to appoint people who shape the zoning laws and land use laws, et cetera, that create the injustice and the environmental harm as they court those corporate donations. So I see an opportunity here, even with this COVID fight, that, you know, given some of the efforts that are ongoing right now with regards to reapportionment, and know that we have former Attorney General Holder and President Obama pushing for reapportionment effort, which is primarily led by whites still. And I think that there's a need for us to, in that space, from an EJ and community's our perspective, to somebody, whoever's got linkages to Holder, et cetera, to pull us into that, number one. But number two, as we get in that space, putting the data together to show the harm in any particular legislative region or location. So we're actually part of the analysis, not only that there's a disparity in under registration to vote, but it's also about for them to create, you know, toxic places in where they can dump their waste and create harm, because the path of least resistance is broken democracy. So I think that there's a huge opportunity right now, and that's coming around the corner in a real sense. So I definitely be interested in working in that space. And also, I'm right now, you know, trying to, you know, get a product up and going on PM 2.5 monitoring. So this is on a data collecting end and technology development project. You know, so I'm looking to see ways in which that can be leveraged and also help the cause as well. So I'm all in. You know, as you folks know, as one of the, you know, Bob is the, you know, the father of the movement. He's our George Washington, but being over in New York, y'all know that I'm the Alexander Hamilton of the movement. So, we're gonna, you know, we're gonna do that data detail and get this thing going. So honored to be here again, and brothers and sisters, let's do this.
Great, thanks, Aaron. There's a question on whether or not you can actually apply online and pay your membership dues there. Yes, you can apply online for the membership and also pay your dues there. We're doing an application process for everyone that's been invited to this call. However, what we're doing is doing more of a registration. So you'll fill out the application there, and then you'll be able to go and apply to the actual membership. And so I will send a link to folks that are on this call as well later after this call, probably tomorrow, and then it will give you the process by which you can go through and pay for your membership there.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Gerald Gurley here in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, and some of you know I started in the movement in 1960, civil rights, and I've been connecting the dots between civil and human, the environmental movement. And the question I had, Tina, as you were talking about the different levels of environment, I'm wondering if the directorship had considered, I know that you talked about it, but is there any effort to try to involve, even though we've been somewhat negligent in the last several months, years maybe, the Black church. We've always, from the historically Black colleges and the Black churches, get them involved as a relaunch takes place now, because we're in an ethical and a moral battle right now. And I think it's going to be necessary. I would like to see that where those efforts begin to converge together. In the movement, you know, we never left without the power of prayer and understanding when we reach those points of finitude, how to go into infinity through that. And I didn't know if that was as you went down the list of memberships and organizations, was that considered from the steering committee, how to actively involve those church faith leaderships across the board, interfaith effort?
Well, go ahead, Dr.
Wonderful to see you again, by the way. And as you know from your attendance at our HBCU climate change conferences, we have always worked closely with the faith-based community. I believe that because a lot of the faith-based organizations are involved in environmental justice work, we didn't think to parcel it out, but we absolutely can do that. But faith-based was not forgotten, as you are testimony to that, but we didn't see it as a category, but that's a good idea. I had not thought of it Damu Smith, who, was our fearless leader, was very much connected with all of the Black church organizations. They were a part of what we did. Bob, can you remember the National Baptist Association, the Lutherans, the Baptist women, all of them were part of NBEJN. And we will not depart from those ways, but that's a good idea. We can add it as a category.
Let me just add to that. As a matter of fact, when we were going back through our historical records on NBEJN, we were trying to locate the original list of all of the members, the 33 members. And if you recall, we tried to go through the list and reconnect with, I think it was at least about maybe a dozen church-based organizations, faith-based organizations.
Financially supported us as well.
Financial support, but also were original members. That the Lutherans, the National Council of Churches,
United Church of Christ,
United Church of Christ, the National Black Baptist Association, the AME. Yeah, we had all of them. We have not done that, Dr. Durley, but we will do that, and that was a solid base for our support and for on the ground meeting places as we would go from different places to the other. The Black church was the place that
we met,
house us
and
our meetings and etc. So no, we have to do that.
Absolutely.
And I'll be glad to work along with you and Dr. Wright in terms of finding the titular heads of AME, CME, United Methodist as a part of this, as a subcommittee. I'll work along with you on that.
Great, thank you.
We have a question from Margaret Gordon. Margaret, you might be on mute.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm still morning in Oakland. I'm in the community of West Oakland. My issues are concerning about how to stay very focused, staying in my lane, what is going to be, what is the support that we would need in the Bay Area to be part of this. There is some re-education around environmental justice that needs to be happening, and we need to have some strategic planning. I was a little bit kind of ticked off when I saw the steering committee, and I'm thank you, Bob, for clarifying that this is not set in stone, but I didn't see anybody from the Bay Area or from the East, from the West Coast. It seems like everything is based on, so far, all the membership so far is outside from the person said they from Oregon. I don't know everybody. And so I think there's going to have to be a relationship building process built into this for us to really hone in our strengths and understanding our weaknesses as we move forward. Thank you.
Could I ditto?
Yeah, you can ditto.
Yeah, ditto that, Margaret. And as I put you in the note, is that in the rapid nature of trying to respond to the emergency, we made it was kind of like we didn't do the broad net to bring whatever. The process is right now is that we're trying to develop a broad national network, which means from coast to coast, and wherever Black people are, and there are organizations on the ground, we want to reach out. And the steering committee is not a set in stone steering committee. It's that at that particular point in time, we said that we need to do this right now, and so it is fluid, and we do have to get to know each other, because the people that were on that first picture that saw, some of those folks are not around. There are lots of new groups that are out there. There's some same groups still fighting, but I think we do have to get to know each other and what we are in terms of port cities, things that have in common. And there's networks out there working on stuff like that. So that's what we're gonna have to do as we move through this process.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add that one of the issues in the Bay Area, we are so split in how we approach environmental justice, and then at the same time creating the space for climate justice and our gentrification. within the Bay Area? Are we going to be able to stay here, live here, work, play, and do the advocacy work around environmental justice? Because we are losing people left, right, and center, especially in Oakland. So, because we are like the second most gentrified city in the nation as of right now. Oakland is. So our opportunities to continue to be in this role leading EJ is every day dwindles every day, and that's why I put in my comments the re-education, because it's not about just black folks anymore, just about black people anymore. It's about who gonna be able to stay here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I think that we recognize that there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we are in an emergency situation. That gentrification thing, the climate stuff is happening in a lot of spaces. I'm here in New Orleans, Louisiana. In 30 years, they're saying where 50 years, and maybe 30 now, where I live may be in the Gulf of Mexico. So, you know, we're all fighting that kind of same battle. I do want to say this, that the steering committee, as it was set up, was not intended to be a slight of anyone. We just needed people very quickly to get on the ground to do a lot of work. We were on the telephone twice a week, every week, between the executive committee and the steering committee. And sometimes for the four of us on the executive committee, we were on the calls for hours and hours. So it was a lot of work. We're just getting started. I am excited that people want to work, that people want to be on the steering committee, that people would want to join all of these work groups and really get involved in the mobilization of groups across the nation to build this agenda that we're talking about as well. So there's more than enough work to go around. And I just want to say, you know, when you ask for something, don't start crying when the work falls. We expect you to fall. Don't start crying afterwards like Dr. Wright, stop calling me. Because that's about what happens in this work.
I'm 73 years old, and I've been at this here. I have cried many a day, fell back on my knees, fell back on my back, and have to roll over and jump back up. So, hey, I know that role, but also I would like to, as I get off the phone, I would like to commit myself to be part of any strategic planning or strategy thinking. That's where I find my strength at.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Margaret, for joining the call. I know I sent you a message just yesterday, so I appreciate that you got on today. Malcolm, I have you, Michael Malcolm, coming on to ask a question, and then I have another question from Nicole Gaines after Michael.
Yeah, I'd first like to volunteer to help Dr. Durley with that faith outreach, as well as I do have the connections with the United Church of Christ because of the seat that I sit in with them. So that's an easy solve. And the last thing I'd like to say is, although we may make a faith-specific target, let me caution us as faith leaders not to get siloed in that, and that we work with others so that we can have an interdisciplinary approach. Our moral voice is needed in those spaces as well.
Great. Thank you. And there were quite a few comments in the comment section on folks who are part of the faith community who are interested in joining in that effort that Reverend Durley just mentioned. Nicole?
Oh, great. Peace, family. I am just so proud to be here. And I didn't have a question per se, Tina, I'm so sorry, but I did want to mention that just to see all the faces from all these different disciplines, from your scientists to your philosophers to your sociologists to activists, it's just amazing how this group is coming together and how we're educating one another. Even as we bring in our religious community, we cannot leave out our LGBTQ community. There are plenty of folks who are wanting to particularly Black people, I'm not just talking about people of color, I'm talking about our Black families, are being affected. I like the way that Nacedo mentioned our education begins with our young people. That's what's going to take us to the future. And right now we have a technological gap within our schools. We have our school systems that do not have access to computers, and it became more and more apparent during COVID-19. And as our teachers became caregivers, and as our caregivers became teachers, we have to be able to prepare our young people in that respect. I'm glad to see Erin here. I am a Sierran. I've worked with the Sierra Club as a volunteer for the last 6 years. So we do a lot of things that are now becoming more front and center. So my brother Ayo is here and his family. I'm just so glad to see that this is all coming together, whether you represent the West Coast, the left coast, the East Coast, and here I am in the dirty South in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm just happy to see everyone and be recognized as a person who is interested in doing this. Oh, and I can't forget U.S. Green Build. I know some folks who are architects and working in our built cities, and I work in our Sustainability Council here. Our built environments are so important, making sure that we don't have our affordable housing, not just our homeless, but our affordable housing that stretches beyond the borders of our red line town. So good to see everybody, and thank you for giving me this time to say something.
Great. Professor Shafi?
Hi, it's so wonderful to be among leaders and friends and to be energized, because all we have been reading about the disparity that breaks your heart and you feel sometimes helpless. And having been part of this group, having that honor is just beyond imagination. As we are thinking about this important, critical, I can't just come up with words to say how important this is. And since our young people are the ones that are going to be dealing with this and moving us forward, is there any way that we can create a structure? I know it's going to be a lot of bureaucracy for that, but I think it is worth it to invest and make this as chapter for different colleges and universities, because not all our students are in HBCUs. There are Black and brown students in white institutions that would like to be involved. So if we can make this a chapter, and at Spelman and all of that, that would be a great way of engaging our students, because many of them are in tune now with sustainability. We just want to bring the environmental racism as part of that environmental groups that they have in different campuses. That's my suggestion as a proud professor at HBCU.
Thank you, Professor Shafi. I have a question from Monica Brooks. But before we do that, Dr. Bullitt, did you want to respond? Yeah. I think the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. And yes. I mean, we have HBCU chapters also, in terms of chapters with our predominantly white institution colleagues and friends. And so we want, chapters at the University of Michigan or wherever. I think we have good contacts with that can have, the faculty mentor can push this forward. Great idea. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Shafi, this was a dream of mine and Dr. Bullitt's almost 30 years ago. We started trying to get money to have environmental justice corps on our campuses. And as you know, it's been a hard thing to fund. The philanthropists would fund white groups to come on our campus, but they never seemed interested in empowering our own students on our own campuses. But we did find a way to get some of it started by having young people start the organizations on their campus, and they got a little support from the student government. My dream is that we are able to fund those organizations, and now we're coming up against, climate reality is moving onto our campuses as well. starting their own group. And so while I have nothing against Climate Reality, I really would like to see us have chapters representing groups where we are in the lead. So it's a struggle, but you know, we've managed to do things with little money. And I think we could probably make that happen also by joining our HBCU climate change conference made up of all the young people, making that a part of NBEJN in some more official way as well. We could see connecting it. Maybe we could make that happen. So that certainly is at the forefront of some of my thinking. Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah. Monica, go ahead. You can come step in. You might be on mute, Monica.
Okay. I've done enough webinars lately. I should know this. I first just want to say hello. I'm on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and I am loving all of this. But what I wanted to address, what I work in primarily is with air and water as it relates to big agriculture. I'm in a rural community. Most of our environmental racism issues deal with everything from large factory farms being placed dangerously close to primarily minority or low income or minority and low income schools, churches, residences. And in particular, we have the University of Maryland Eastern Shore here, which is surrounded by 300 factory farms. All of those polluting the air, contaminating, and in such a way that it's always for me, I try to educate the leadership to say, you know, this is something that you all should be fighting against, but what's happened is that we have big agriculture gives lots of money to that university to focus on agriculture. So the system is being set up that the very university is teaching them how to pollute the people who are attending that school. And so we've been fighting against big agriculture because for us, our air pollution and water contamination is not coming from buses or, you know, big factories so much so as it is these over mega sized football sized field farms. We're also advocating for Black farmers, which only make up 1.3% of our national farmers in the whole United States, 1.3%. And out of that 1.3%, only 0.7% of them own the land that they're on. So that's the focus that I have here. And I'm inspired when it was mentioned about a chapter. I would love to get something encouraged to fight from within at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
Well, we have Dr. Jacoby Wilson is on our steering committee. And I don't know if you know of his work or know him, but we are very familiar with CAFOs in North Carolina and
oh yeah, we work a lot. We do a lot of work together. He's awesome. He is fantastic.
Yeah, no, we got the people who can help. If we just get more people and more people and more groups, and that's that rapid deployment team that we're talking about.
I just wanted to answer some questions that came through on the chat. So just in case people missed it, when you apply, put your application in for membership, we will get that. And then we are ongoing, we're vetting our applications. And so we have a process by which we actually review the applications and see what everyone is doing. And then we send an email response saying you've been approved and this is how you join. And for folks who are on this call, that registration, what you are doing is applying, but you're registering with us, and then I will send an email out that gets you the link to, so you can go ahead and pay for membership. And then there's a question about working groups, and Dr. Bullard and folks on the executive committee, actually, we should talk through this with folks. What our plan is to have a list of those working groups in the membership portal, which is by password only, where you will be able to select the working group you want to work on. And then also, if there are working groups that aren't there, based on the conversations we're having here, it seems like we're going to be adding some other elements to the platform. They will be added there as well. So then you'll get to select at least one working group that you would like to work on based on a platform that we identified today. And then each of those working groups will have to be populated, and we'll need a chair. This is where the work comes in. There will be chairs for some of the working groups, but there will be working groups that will need chairs to help move the work along. And so this part, we are actually working together on facilitating so that we can make sure that we have people who are going to do the work, because that's what we're here to do, and that we're able to have the output for the outcome that we're looking for. And then there were just a few shout outs for universities that people are representing. So welcome aboard, everybody from the South. And let me just look really fast. There was a question about LGBTQ and other communities. Again, these are not things that we are not interested in, but we'll have that conversation on how that works in and how we want to develop that. It's not an oversight as much as it is that we're looking at these terms in broad terms and that we fill out together as a network on the approach in which, or the communities in which we need to also be including in that. Dr. Wright, Dr. Bullitt, Peggy, or Donnell, do you have anything to add to that, those questions or statements?
No, I just think on the BQTQ, that keeps moving, so did we, from the N-word to colored, Negro, Afro-American, and whatever. So, you know, when you are my despised minority, as we have been considered, we evolve. I think that as a group, we have always included LGBTQ TQ people in our organization working on environmental justice issues. They've never been separated out, never been excluded, and never been separated out. Times have changed, and it may be time for us to look at another way of being inclusive with LGBT, whatever, TQ. I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just getting old and I can't remember stuff as well when I try to say the alphabets. But we have always been inclusive and never denied anyone or separated anyone out. But I believe that what people are talking about now is a focus on issues that are exclusive to a particular group of people who are also Black. That is a conversation that we need to have that we have never had.
Yeah.
So
I would just say, in terms of, if there's language that needs to be explicit in our write-ups so that it's not implied, it's stated up front in terms of how we are for racial justice. And we are against any injustice, and then just make it explicit. And the fact that, as I said before, it's like you said, we've never, gone out there and excluded folks when we talk about racism and discrimination. So I think we can
probably a conversation we need to have. We've never had it before.
Thank you for the response. And then there was a question about gentrification. Again, I think that these are issues.
I just have a fine point on this particular issue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, there's a reason why there's NBEJN. And again, race is, like going back to the root, the toxic waste and race. Race is critical. LGBTQ and any other piece of that is an inclusive subset. At the end of the day, you're Black. Like Baird Rustin, he never separated out, or
he never did. That's right.
homosexuality, etc., and oppression that was going on within the gay community. But the fact of the matter is, and this is how the EJ movement has faltered, because anything that Blacks do, we have to carry on our back everything else. And then ends up happening is the movement gets hijacked, or often people spin off and resources. This is why we have to do this, the fundraising that we have to do like right now. But the fact of the matter is that there is a pernicious form of piggybackism that, let me be clear, as a statistician, as an African-American, LGBTQ is not a part from, it's a part of. If you're Black and LGBTQ, you are part of this struggle. It's not an apart from. And the minute that we start to go away from the B in the NEBJN and have everything else there, we lose, and it's not an accident. Because everybody wants to brand and wants to tag. Well, fine, tag. We got research and other things coming up. But, the unique Afrocentric part, and the fact that African Americans, our struggle, our blood, our lives, our existence, which covers the continuum and expression, has to do something that no other group has done. The Human Rights Campaign speaks of human rights, but specifically, you do not see them doing anything special or adding Blacks in the Human Rights Campaign. This is not to knock that movement. I just want folks to be clear. If don't be alienated, by being an ally, or don't be alienated by feeling that if you don't see a identity alphabet letter there, that this is exclusive. What this is going to the root of the toxic waste and race study. Because at the end of the day, everybody at their point of equity and inclusion, they get in there, and for a lot of folks, equity inclusion is that once I get to the status of being treated like a white male, that I'm going to take on those other power attributes and power dynamics. So the answer at the end of the day, let's stay focused on the intentionality and on and the destructive acts and the disparities are not discriminating. They're clearly in Black and white, and I think that at the end of the day, it is high time that the African-American community just basically says, God damn it, let's carve this space. Let's be clear and intentional about this approach. Because like I said, all, like anything, as we lift it up, all boats rise on our back and have been rising on our back. And leaving the shore. So this is one time we want to be clear and intentional, and I just like the lucidity of the starting point. So I think that if folks have a problem with it, just having Black there, then like I said, consider your membership.
Thank you for that, Aaron. Camila. I hope I'm saying
Camellia.
Camellia. Sorry,
Yes, so one of the things we have not mentioned, first of all, greetings. I'm actually in Norfolk, although I reside in Louisiana for the most part of the year. I'm the Dean of Arts and Sciences at Xavier. And earlier today, we were having a conversation around with some thought leaders at the institution about how do we leverage all the HBCUs there in the New Orleans area so that we can be more intentional with our community and making sure people understand, first of all, what we need to do with COVID and where things are going. But in particular, one thing I haven't heard, and I'm concerned because the primary thing that I'm interested in is my students are going to be employable. And our communities, when I was in New Orleans, I realized that young Black kids were the ones keeping the economy open in New Orleans. They were at every cash register. They were at all the fast food places. And I thought, how, they don't even want to give these kids a living wage. But yet without them in the grocery stores, we wouldn't have been, they were stuck in the shelves. And I just thought, this is, nobody's talking about this, that the people who are really pending up the economy are these young people. And then I come to Norfolk and they've shut down, and I have a child who now doesn't have a job because the industry that she was working with, they're not able to recover after COVID, so they're going to close. And I was like, well, where are the job creation? One of the things that we must think about as how do we create opportunities that are I'm a big proponent of we save ourselves, because no one has ever been interested in saving us, so we have to do some things to help ourselves, and creating innovative ways and getting the technologies in our community. We need to also think about how that also allows us to be in a position to have a different type of power, financial power. So I would like for our group to, if that's of interest, if anyone else has a like mind, would be interested in talking with us or talking with me. I'm actually talking with the deans at Dillard, the business dean at Dillard and SUNO. And we've been having conversations about how to, what we can do. Are there opportunities for us to franchise certain things that we are learning about the environment? And if so, how do we scale that up so that more of our students have opportunities? So that's just my thought, my 2 cents. And thank you for the invitation. I'm glad I was able to get on, because I was one of those people who had problems in the beginning.
So
No bandwidth.
I'm wondering, so Camelia, I'm wondering if you missed the very beginning when we talked about the Black agenda, and one of the rubrics was economic justice. We don't do anything without thinking about economics and the education of our children and becoming financially stable. So you don't have to look far. There's a whole segment of the agenda that will be looking at economic justice, and under that includes everything that you're talking about in terms of workforce development, not just for our college students, but for our kids who don't go to college, but still need jobs at a living wage. So Dr. Bullitt and I have for the last 25 years worked with a program funded by the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, where our main goal is training for work. And that program has changed lives. So I am where you are. Right now, we know all of the essential workers tend to be us, which has also made us sicker because we take it home to our families. But those jobs are not high-paying jobs, and we need to spend more time talking about what an average wage should be. So believe me, this is not lost on us. This has been a major tenet of all of our work, even in working in communities that have been poisoned. One of the things that we've always talked about is that although we may be able to get the emissions down when we leave, the community is still poor with no jobs. And so that has been a focus for about 30 years. So you are in the right space with your concerns.
Yeah, could I add to that? And and as I said, I don't know, like Dr. I don't know when you got on the call, but a lot of the points that we're making connect back to the issue of vulnerability, comorbidity, lack of opportunity, systemic racism, and how do we address that in a way that we use, we asset map what we have in our communities, talking about our schools, our universities, whether it's the business school, the law school, the School of Public Health, et cetera, whether it's at a Tennessee State University, or whether it's at a FAMU, or whether it's at a Texas Southern University, or a Dillard or a Xavier. We have, for the last, how many years, Beverly? 5 years, we've had an HBCU. 7 years, a consortium, and Xavier is part of that consortium that's looking at the intersection between health, environment, economic opportunity. You start naming all the things, and it's not just sending kids to medical school. It's also what happens to the community where your school is located, and how connected are you with the university. So we've had community university partnerships and got them funded, and we still have a lot of projects. And so we published on this stuff, community-based participatory research. Also in looking at the data and tracking COVID essential workers and wages, and looking at tracking dollars that go to stimulus and to our small Black-owned businesses that shut out. So it means there are a level of racism that we have to deal with when it comes to the business community, the banking community. Our small black banks were shut out in terms of getting monies to a lot of our businesses to reopen, et cetera. So there are layers and layers of systemic racism that we have to peel away. In order for us to peel it away, we have to understand how they connect. And a lot of it has nothing to do with science other than political science and economics and sociology. So if you're just counting parts per million and greenhouse gases, you won't deal with a lot of the issues that we're talking about that has more to do with how power is actually is distributed and who has access to information in a timely manner. This is definitely something that we can deal with in a New Orleans, where there's a cluster of HBCUs, or in Atlanta, or in Nashville, or Houston, or other places that may not have an HBCU, but may have individuals who work at universities that can partner with local community organizations to get things done in a way that's more systematic.
Yep. Savi, go ahead. You're unmuted. You can speak.
Okay. I just want to I was really, and thank you, Monique, for sharing the memories of the meeting and the hotel, and I was just really choked up by when I saw the picture of Damu, and kind of had to go offline, but I was attentive to the conversation. So as most of you know, I'm with the Land Loss Prevention Project, and we work at the intersection of land loss and environmental justice, because there's always that nexus. If you lose land, some knocks will come in, whether it's highway expansion or sewage treatment or CAFO. So that's always a constant presence and pressure. I just want to flag that there is a growing movement around Black land and liberation under the Black Land and Power Coalition, which is being housed under the National Black Food and Justice Network. So I see a lot of synergy with the EJ network and I think it'll be very powerful in many ways, and to begin a conversation with them about alliances and joint work and strategy. It's a movement which is has been building over the last 4 years with very, very committed young people. And I'm just amazed at the level of thinking and their strategic intervention in places to help deal with community concerns. And so I just wanted to uplift that, and also to flag the fact that they're also looking at building out a vehicle of giving to support our work across the board. And we are labeling it Quilombo in terms of the self-determined Brazilian population that basically were able to set up Marunich and got themselves out of slavery. And with this COVID and its impact on African Americans, we also need to be mindful of the devastation in Brazil and elsewhere in Africa and the Caribbean, especially in Brazil, given the fact that it has the largest African population outside of Africa. And so, and what the fascist president is doing to our people there. So I just want to uplift that and maybe say that, or just say it, that there might be like a need for early intervention from the EJ network, whether it's a letter to the UN, because Monique has proven that that strategy does work, to just express our outrage about the lack of medical intervention in Brazil and what that could mean to our diaspora population. So I just want to say, I'm just really, really happy and overjoyed to see you all on the phone and the work ahead, and just to renew the energy to just push through and get it done and leave a lasting organization and a footprint for the generation that's out there doing that work. I think that's really important. So thank you all.
Thank you, Savvy. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. I recognize your background there.
Savvy, I just wanted to say, even though we did not identify it as one of our platform areas, food justice is definitely, I mean, agriculture, food justice, it's all a part of this work. I mean,
and so is the international
piece of it as well. Yeah. So that will be included. And I think the letter that you just mentioned is something that this network could really start to think through on how we want to engage on that. So I appreciate that suggestion. Peggy, I see your hand raised. Go ahead. Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to make the point that that Bev just made about the international work. We were on a call a few days ago where that was brought up. And so many of us over the years have gone to all of the PrepCom meetings for the international climate talks, the conference on racism in South Africa. And we had hoped to really be able to work more in globalization. Remember when that was a key word? And then all of the foundations got caught up with Congress and stopped funding some of our delegations internationally. But we had begun to make some key inroads, and I think it would be important for us to do that, because we know that many of our American companies are exporting toxic chemicals to third world countries, to countries of color, and we really need to be in solidarity with that. So I wanted to make that point, that we really do need to get back with our brothers and sisters internationally. And then I wanted to make the point that yesterday, President Trump is exhorting everyone to open schools in September. And I know INSEE has brought up the issue of education, and many of our schools really just have no resources. At least in New York, some of our kids are going to schools in trailers because of the lack of space. So I think we really need to think about COVID in schools and our kids' health. If they are made to go back into schools before our cities and towns are really ready for that.
So hi, everybody. I'm having a hard time negotiating my video, but this is Maisha Mitchell in Tallahassee, Florida. Hello, everyone. I just want to make a comment about the international work. So for years now, I've been working with an organization that trains and helps to train young people from Cuba who've been part of the medical school there. And we've had over 100 plus graduates who want to work in the South, but they don't have an opportunity. Most of them, once they graduated from the International School of Medicine in Havana, they end up going to New York, California, Detroit, but never to the South because there's no mechanism to invite them here. And so I've had them say to us, we want to be able to work with our community, do community-based barefoot doctoring, those types of things where we have big gaps. So I wonder how extensive would our work be in terms of the global market and engaging those young graduates. This year we had 12 of those young people match, and they matched very high. across the country and the most prestigious residency programs in the country. And every year it's been no different. So I'm very interested in how we can engage those Cuban doctors who are very fluent in Spanish, who know about the barefoot doctor approach, who know how to engage, cultural diversity. They know all the things we're asking for in terms of the gap that we have in access to healthcare. So one of the pieces that we've been working on for a little bit now is how to get them engaged in some mobile health outreach efforts. Basically something we call the Hucksters Mobile Market that would have a place to get young people, these doctors who were willing to spend their off year, their last year in the medical training during graduating from medical school, in a place in a community in the Deep South that can be helpful and providing the support that we need at that level. So there are doctors available to work with us in so many capacities, and I really want to know how that might fit into what we're talking about here.
Could I respond? You're in Tallahassee. Last time I checked, that's Florida, right? That's the South. There are lots of, do the doctors speak English?
Yeah, they're from America. They're just trained in Cuba.
That's my point.
Yes.
It's like there are lots of Black organizations in the region that we work with that are pretty well known in communities that are underserved. It's just a matter of sending out a few emails or getting on the phone and calling, and we can identify places that they possibly could be in 8 states that the poorest and the sickest. So yeah, now we could easily identify that without having an NBEJN, but NBEJN could facilitate that.
Yeah, I think it's a key point for us we'll have our own cadre of people to work with, which is very, very important. Okay. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah,
and we have a question from Brendan Bozeman, and we're just about at our time. So Brendan, go ahead, ask your question, make your statement.
Yes, good afternoon. I put a couple of comments in the chat, and one was certainly I wanted to piggyback on Sister Savi's remarks in that we need to also focus on the upcoming November election, because much of what we're talking about will almost be moot conversations if this administration is left to wreak havoc. And also to follow up and concur with Dr. McLean in terms of adding nuclear as a focus to this. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So are there any other statements or comments before I move into next steps?
You hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I have one comment.
Wait,
Although
there was
Donnell
someone
Wilkins, I just want to say,
someone was before you.
no, I just couldn't get in. I was I wasn't muted, but go right ahead. I was talking and it was muted. I was muted.
Okay, there was a woman before you that flashed up.
I'm Dorothy Eidelberg, if you can
Hey,
hear
Dorothy.
me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, well, I've listened to everyone, and I think that this has been a very informative meeting. And over the years, I've been doing a lot of work in this area. I'm currently at Alcorn State University, and I've been working with Dr. Wright and Dr. Bullock for a long time. And I think it just takes me back to my years when I worked with Dr. Height, and you all know Dr. Dorothy Height. I worked under her for a number of years. And the things that came out pretty much just that interest me. I've always been in education and training, and was trained as a sociologist and then as a social worker. And I see all of this coming together. And I hope that all of us will leave with the desire to just do better. We have so much that I think that we can do in terms of mentoring our students. At Alcorn, we have the university and community partnerships. All of those things I think are important in working with the program with Dr. Wright, and we've done a lot with our students, and I think that's been fantastic. But I also think that we need to do a lot to work with bringing our groups together in terms of just making them more positive in terms of putting out an image that we're all going to in this together. And so I'm looking at the idea that we have to do more in terms of doing the roundtables and doing the things that are going to be very important for us now, because if COVID is, the virus is here to stay, we have to do more in terms of our workshops and webinars. And I think this is one of the excellent ways that we can do it. I learned a lot. I enjoyed seeing every one of you. And I certainly hope that all of us can do our share in terms of bringing us closer together as a people. Because that's what I'm seeing that we're not getting. Regardless of who you are, we're all human beings and all of us need to work together to bring about a better country and a better world. So thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ms. Dorothy. Go ahead, Dr. Wright.
Yeah.
Well, I really didn't have much to say except that you all have probably noticed that Donnell Wilkins' name is under my face. I'm not Donnell's twin. We just had a glitch. So this is Beverly Wright speaking from Donnell Wilkins' photo. So people who don't know me, this is Beverly Wright with Donnell's name under it.
Can I just say a closing one short comment?
Right, who doesn't know you?
Some people don't.
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Say.
I just wanted to say,
trying to speak? Sorry.
I want to emphasize something that I believe it was Aaron said, because we've heard a lot of great comments across the board. And I think Dr. Bullitt started off unapologetically Black. As we relaunch, I just like to add, as a steering committee get together, that we focus on the things that we do best rather than covering the gamut. I've heard a lot of good things and a lot of great organizations, but how do we focus in on those things because we can, and I think Aaron used the term, we've carried and we've lifted so many votes over the years. It's our time now to focus right in on what Dr. Wright, Bullard, and Tina, what you've been doing, what you've been talking about, because we've heard a lot of things, international, all over the place, but I'm ready to just focus down on those things that really are germane to our survival with our young people, bringing them up, taking those old veterans like me. I never thought I'd be the oldest person on a phone call. I'll be 79. I'll be 79 years old my next birthday. I never thought I'd be the oldest person on the phone. So I'm giving the wisdom now that if we just focus down on those 3 or 4 things, focus in, and then help other people, but let's get our stuff together.
I agree. That has been a theme throughout all of our meetings. So you're right on track with that. But if we get 1,000 people working, then maybe we can do more. The thing is, people talking, then it don't work. So if we're big enough, but I really think that we need to be focused so that we can see something change.
I want to, Dr. Bullitt, Donnell, or Dr. Peggy, if you have anything that you'd like to say.
And are there other steering committee members on the call who'd like to say something? They should.
I would just like to, I'm very excited about the level of enthusiasm and the ideas that have been coming forward through the chat. I do want to say that there's a great opportunity to do working group around the economic justice piece, job creation and training, and all the things that many of us have been working on, and we just welcome that. Hey, Savvy, I just wanted to say hey to some folks I hadn't seen in a long time, and so glad that you were able to join the call and see your wonderful face and know you're still in the movement. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's just increasing my motivation to hang in there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd just like to quickly say that this is a moment, and all the things that's swirling around with us in terms of all kinds of groups making racial justice statements, but it's more than a statement. We got to get to work on this now, because there's a window that's open that we have to come together and push it out and demand. And if we can work, this intergenerational work that needs to be done, and bringing all kinds of folks in who have something to give, but also something to learn, I think we're going to get this right. And I'm excited about, about the enthusiasm and about the response. And again, this is not a sprint. This is like a little marathon that we're going to be running, and we're going to be coming back, inviting people back. We're going to be broadening the tent, because we're just reaching out, and we're going to miss some folks. So if we miss somebody, we got to, bring them in. If we miss an organization, we got to bring them in. We got to spread this across the U.S. This is a big country, and there's a lot of work to do. And I think if people are willing to, put this as a major priority area, I know we all have organizations that we are tied to, but the National Black Environmental Justice Network is another organization that we have to commit to, in addition to our own institution, organization, or whatever. And that's how I see it. And that's how I see us getting it right.
Yeah, I would also like to say thank you for all of you hanging in. Who says you can't be on Zoom for 2 hours? So we might have some gaps. So please think about those gaps and expertise, and invite your colleagues to join us. If we've talked about some issues that you're really keen on, please sign up to share your knowledge on that. That's the way we're going to benefit and achieve the vision. So thank you all for being with us, and we hope you're going to be with us for good.
I want to thank you all for joining the call. We are at our 2 hours, and we made it. Just remember, please apply, and you will get an email once we get that application in on how to go forward and process your payment for becoming a member. Join a working group, and we will get to work together. There are some questions left in the chat around reparations. I'm not sure if anyone is going to have we don't have a formal meeting yet, but it is in our platform. It's one of the things that we are very strongly in support of. And so if there is interest in having a conversation with folks from the network, please send an email to me, and then I can make sure it gets out to other folks on the call. But if you have questions after this, email me directly. You all have my email address, or anyone else on the steering committee or the executive committee. We will be in touch really soon. This was wonderful. This is just the beginning. Thank you all so very much. Have a great rest of the week and a great evening. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Be safe.
Hey, David. Bye. Great haircut, David.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hey,
Nice
John.
seeing you,
Walford,
Peggy.
hey.
And Donnell.
Dr. Walford, yeah.
Hey, good people.
See some people. If you say something, we can see your face. It's
Hey!
like it up. Oh, Simone.
Hey,
Good to see you.
Hey, Anya, are you still on?
Hey.
Kathy Eglin's on here somewhere. She hasn't left.
Yeah. If you just say something. I saw one of the Wilson twins.
Yeah.
I thought I saw one of the Wilson twins.
Yeah, Omega was on. Yep.
Yeah.
Look, good to see you all.
Yeah.
Good to see all of you.
All right.
I wish I could hug.
Thanks,
I
Tina.
can't. Oh, it's so good to see y'all.
Hey, Maisha, Miss Mitchell, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Reverend Caldwell, how you doing over there?
There was 60 people on the call.
There were 62. Couldn't see everybody.
People, so it's just wonderful seeing y'all. Bye. I'm sleepy and I'm hungry. I haven't slept or.
Greetings to all the West Coast people, because that's where I'm from. Love all the West Coast. I miss living on the West Coast.
Not me. I used to live on the West Coast. I'll take the South.
I'm fine. It's good to see you. It was very, very
Oh, Reverend Caldwell.
We're in H-Town. It's hot down here with that COVID. Burning. Ooh, it's burning.
Yes,
Very,
indeed.
I'm excited, motivated, encouraged, and as always, if there's anything that I can do, I'll be more than happy to contribute. And Ms. Johnson, just send me that email.
I will.
Yes.
Let's make it
Okay.
happen.
Good to see
Yeah.
you. So I have one funny
Right.
story for those of you left on the phone. I was up last night until 3 o'clock. I sent a text out. Tina answered, who's in the Netherlands. I was just going to bed and she
No,
was
she's
getting
in
up.
Norway.
Norway, I'm saying that, Norway. So she was getting up, answered my call. I was going to bed. So I mean, it was
No,
really
I got
funny.
one. I got one too. She sent me a note. It was 4:30 my time. On a slide, she sent me a note. I heard my thing ding, and I looked at it, and I said, "I'll take care of it."
Who is
So
this?
it's 7 out. Tina sent me the note.
Oh,
The email
Tina.
this morning at 4:30
Well, you
my
get
time.
up at 4.
Yeah, that's true, but I don't get up at no 4:30. 5 o'clock.
30 minutes.
Even out of 30 minutes of sleep.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Even a 7-hour difference, we have to work.
I went to bed at 3:30 this morning.
Yes, you
3:30.
did.
I went to
Really,
bed at
because
10
I just
o'clock.
had a lot of work to do. And believe it or not, it was hard trying to pull this together. There's so many emotions. I still miss Damu every time we work. It's just really been hard. Wish he were here. He is not.
He is here. He's with us
But
now.
doing
Smiling
this,
down on you from the realm of the ancestors.
That's right.
yeah, I'm
Watching
telling you,
what you're doing.
I'm
Yes.
telling you, it's hard.
He
But
sees
doing
what
this
you're
in his
doing.
memory, this is what he would have wanted, you know, and to keep his energy was so high, though his spirit, his drive, it was all of that. So we're gonna try to keep this going in his memory. I saw in the chat box someone saying that his sister, his daughter, always want them to know that gone but not forgotten. That's Damu.
Absolutely.
Whose real name was Leroy Smith.
Smith from St. Louis, Missouri.
Leroy Smith. And checking into a hotel, I went saying, I'm looking for Damu Smith. The man said, we don't have any Damu. I couldn't get him. And then he came downstairs. I said, boy, you're not even registered here. Oh, it's in my other name.
He
I'm like,
whispered
"What's
that.
Leroy. He was a character. Tina, I wish you had known him. He was a character, girl.
He really was.
We got so many stories. When he first really got sick in Palestine, he called me from Palestine.
Hey, Casima.
And he said to me, he said, Beverly, remember how you would say to me, oh, Damu, you need to go on and eat that fish. You know, a little piece won't hurt you. I would always tell him that, and I'd say, boy, I'm gonna tell you what, if you die before me, I'm going up to that coffin. I'm gonna say all of that good catfish you missed out on eating, and you didn't even live longer than me, which made me cry later because I didn't mean it. But he called me from Palestine, and he told me he had thought about that, and also that he had passed out. And when he awakened, he just had the most wonderful taste in his mouth. He didn't know what it was, and so he asked the Palestinian woman what it was, and she said it was chocolate. It had been so long since he didn't even recognize the taste of chocolate, so he was just reflecting on all the things he did not eat. But the worst of it all for me was that his father died of colon cancer, and he never had a colonoscopy. And all the problems he had with his stomach, he attributed to food. But it was more than food. It was the fact he probably had a genetic propensity towards that disease. And he had no health insurance. All of these things go around and around with what we need to get activists to do, or what we need to do for activists. And on that, I'm going to say goodbye, everyone. Wonderful to see you, Savvy, Dr. Walford.
Bev, don't hang up.
Don't hang up.
The executive committee needs to stay on, but everyone else,
You ought to
Bye,
make
everyone.
Bob stay on too, not just make Bob stay on.
Bob's gonna
Nobody
stay
can
on.
make me do anything.
Peggy staying,
Yeah,
Donnell
right.
staying, yes.
No comment.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Peggy, you look pretty in your pink.
Yeah.
Very pretty.
Yeah, that was a movie.
What?
Remember that movie?
Oh, Pretty in Pink. Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. All right. So who has to stay on?
Let me just make sure.
Donnell left.
Donnell should be here. I sent her a message.
I don't see her.
Donnell. Let me call. She probably got emotional and forgot and got off the phone.
Yeah. I did. That was good.
It was.
I thought it went well.
There was a bunch of people.
Can you hold, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm calling Donnell now.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Savvy in a long time.
I saw her.
Donnell, you need to get back on.
I'm trying
You're
to figure
still
out when
on.
I
You
saw Savvy.
got a message telling you
It's
to
been
stay
about over a
on.
year.
Okay,
We just
we're
kind of like
waiting.
we was at
Get back
a
on.
conference
All
or
right.
something, and
Bye-bye.
we have a lot of chance to chat. But yeah, we got a chance to